Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Front Indica podcast. Currently, we are in the midst of, or perhaps at the end of, another cryptocurrency bull run. I'm sure by this time, most of you must at least be somewhat familiar with the terms Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and some of you may have even dabbled in the world of blockchain tokens yourself. But beyond the opening up of yet another avenue of financial speculation, what exactly can we expect to be the real world consequences of mass adoption of cryptocurrencies, especially when it comes to the power of states over individuals? To begin with, we at least need to get rid of certain misconceptions. Many people still think that cryptocurrencies, especially established ones like Bitcoin, are completely anonymous and cannot be traced at all. But this isn't exactly true. Bitcoin is pseudonymous, not anonymous, in the sense that its public ledger contains a record of all transactions from and between different addresses, but not the names of the individuals who own those addresses. So essentially, a record of each and every transaction which takes place on the Bitcoin blockchain is available for the whole world to see, including governments. So does that mean that governments can easily track and seize your Bitcoin if they feel so inclined? Well, not really. But there are some ways in which governments have been enhancing their capabilities of associating Bitcoin and other crypto addresses to individuals, such as forcing crypto exchanges to make KYC mandatory, as well as relying on blockchain analysis software to track transactions to certain individuals and organizations. That means that in truth, even though cryptocurrencies are permissionless and individuals using them are less easily tracked, the whole thing is not entirely foolproof. Of course, there are other ways like using mixers or privacy coins like Monero, which can make user identity much more difficult to track. But for now, let's assume that such options will not see mass adoption. Moving on, in our hypothetical scenario, we are looking at a world where there is mass cryptocurrency adoption by most sellers and consumers. The first big hit that the governments of the world will take is in their ability to control monetary policy. Central banks will not be able to push interest rates up or down on a whim. They'll not be able to print another $1 trillion or another 1 lakh crore rupees out of thin air. Of course, the plus side of this is that governments which are known to be short-term minded and careless with their monetary policy, like ones in Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and even here in India from time to time, will not be able to destroy their citizens' life savings through their reckless money printing. Another related aspect which comes into play is that capital controls will be a lot tougher to impose. Right now, if you want to move your rupees abroad, there is a particular system which you have to go through, and your identity and tax details which you have to share. There are limits to how much money you can move, and there will generally be a sizable commission charged by the bank moving your money as well. But cryptocurrency does away with all of this. You don't need to share any details whatsoever to move your money abroad. You can literally just memorize your seed phrase and recover your wallet in any part of the world, on any smartphone or on any computer. Now, one might be tempted to think that this will have a major negative effect on developing economies for the most part, where the local elites are always on the lookout to flee with their capital to greener pastures. But what we also need to keep in mind is that mass adoption of cryptocurrencies also takes away the power that comes with being the reserve currency for the US dollar, and to a lesser extent even for currencies like the euro, yen and the pound. The US is a prime example of a country that has been financing its huge fiscal deficits for decades with money printing, with very minor inflationary consequence, since much of that inflation is just exported abroad to other countries which are hungry for dollars to conduct their own trade. If cryptocurrencies were to become the primary way that we exchange value with each other, then the US would no longer be able to live off the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency, and the US government would have to shift to much more prudent fiscal policies rather than never-ending bread and circuses. Moreover, since the movement of capital will become a lot freer, this will enable people to get much easier access to credit, especially the unbanked in third world countries, who would be able to get loans through decentralized finance from lenders in any corner of the world. So again, we can see that there will be pros and cons for both developing and developed countries with respect to the movement of capital. The next obvious question is that of taxation. Besides their power to print fiat money at will, the next big power of the state is that of being able to tax its population. How will the existing tax system work when the bank accounts of citizens cannot be relied upon to provide readily available data on who made how much money and who spent how much money? Going back to our initial assumption, the state will only have a limited ability to track and identify cryptocurrency transactions. Although one can never be really sure of how future technology evolves and to what extent it will pose a challenge to existing cryptographic elements of blockchain tokens, at least what seems probable is that a body blow will also be dealt to the state's ability to tax its citizens. Now, there are certain kinds of transactions which are so dependent on physical movement that people will have no option but to pay taxes on them, whether in cryptocurrency or in fiat currency. For example, in the case of toll taxes or customs duty, no matter how decentralized the world's financial system gets, if your truck is going through a toll booth or if a ship is going through a port, it will have to cough up some money to be able to pass. Other than this, I see states increasingly relying on a service for fees based model to generate revenue rather than outright taxes. Perhaps this may even turn into a private versus government sector competition in many areas, like municipal trash collection, local policing, street lights, etc., where government agencies would be forced to compete on equal footing with private enterprises to earn revenue. All in all, I'm cautiously optimistic that mass cryptocurrency adoption will end the tyranny of big government in many ways and force it to become more efficient and competent. I also think that in general, the new liberties afforded to competent people, no matter where they might be on the planet, would unleash a new spirit of entrepreneurship and prevent problems like regulatory capture and the monopolistic tendencies of markets from getting out of hand. Let me know if you are similarly optimistic or if you have a more cynical view of things in this regard. With that, we'll end this episode here, guys. Until next time, goodbye.